Very nice, generous introduction. Thank you. We're actually going to start off with a little clip here, and then pay attention to the platform that the grandpa is using.
Mit dem neuen iPad zurecht, was wir dir zum Geburtstag geschenkt haben.
Gut.
Mit den ganzen Apps kommst du klar?
Was denn für Apps? Geh mal bitte einen Schritt zur Seite.
So, yeah, don't let your granddad play with your iPad. In all seriousness, my dad is 67 years old, and he just ordered himself an iPad, and I hope he doesn't end up using it as a cutting board. Let me tell you a little bit about my relationship with Apple. Jason read me back when I was writing for TheStreet.com, and I actually started with Jim Cramer back in 2000. And I was doing a technology, telecom, oriented talks and writings, and eventually I did end up starting a technology hedge fund in October 2002, right when the NASDAQ stock market bottomed after crashing 75% from 2000. And to this day I tell everybody it was the luckiest thing I ever did. I mean, the timing was perfect. 11 days later the market bottomed and took off and doubled while I was managing money. And along there, March 2003, I was running a screen of stocks that were trading for less than the cash that they had in their, what I call their checking account. You can call it their balance sheet, but trying to speak to consumers at TheStreet.com, I would always explain it that, look, right now Apple has $8 per share in their checking account. And I can go buy one share of Apple at $7 per share. I get the company for free. If they earn anything from then on, I'll be paid. I bought Apple at $7, and I held it until I closed my hedge fund in October 2007, which happened to be the second luckiest timing I could have ever done, because, you know, we obviously popped and topped, and it got really ugly in 2008, and I happened to be talking about that stuff on TV and built my momentum because I was still talking about Apple, and of course, here Apple, I get to tell people, I bought Apple at $7 and sold it at 160, and I'm telling you, don't sell it, because the only reason I sold it is because I'm now on TV and I don't want to own stocks and be conflicted and all of that. But guess what? I'm here today to tell you, I still wouldn't sell Apple. I bought it back. I am now managing my own money and trading. I don't do TV anymore, and I'm able to trade stocks. And check out tradingwithcody.com. That's where I write about all of my trades, and I do analyze Apple repeatedly, and it's been the biggest position since I started trading again last March. And the point of the story isn't that, A, I was so smart. Part of it was luck, you know? I mean, that is, if I hadn't been managing money in October or March 2003, I wouldn't have had the chance to buy that stock at $7. Jim Cramer hadn't published some of my articles. Jason wouldn't have had the chance to read me, and I wouldn't be here today talking about all of this. So the point being, I've grown with Apple. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, I'll talk a little bit about my problems with Steve Jobs, but for the most part, I mean, I revere and idolize and love the company and these guys that you're talking today. I can't believe that Steve Wozniak opened for me. All right, maybe not. I was really intimidated after seeing him talk. I mean, my goodness, his brain was just running like I couldn't believe. And I didn't build in circuits or cool stuff like that in my head before I built it on a board. That was an awesome talk, I will tell you. I've never seen anybody really blow my socks off quite like that. What I want to talk to you about today, though, is how Apple does get to $1,000. It's $1 trillion market cap that I'm talking about. This isn't something new. I'm not sitting here today. It's actually not nearly as shocking to say it today. Now it's at $600. I think when Jason and I first started broaching the topic, it was probably around 300, and it was sort of cool to say, hey, it's going to triple in the next 3 years, and it was a little more outrageous. $1,000 still sounds a little bit outrageous. $1 trillion market cap has never happened. There's never been $1 trillion market cap in the United States, for sure. China, it's all fraudulent over there anyway. But here in the United States, you know, Cisco hit 500 billion, and that was the top. Exxon, I'm sure you guys have heard, hit 500 billion, that was the top. And that was the big alarm, right? When Apple hit $500 a share, a $500 billion market cap. How can it possibly keep going up? And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today, and that's actually tied back into the clip I showed earlier. The whole thing about Apple and why it's been so successful is the platform itself, and it's not the cutting board platform for your vegetables, but it is that ecosystem that we've talked about endlessly here, and that is the driver. It's the platform, it's the ecosystem. Once you create a platform that then hits critical mass, which the iPod did, which then of course sort of opened up the potential for what I used to call, eventually I'll have an iMini MacBook Pro in my pocket. That was the iPhone I was picturing. Obviously I didn't know it looked just like that or anything like that, but that is what we have in our pockets today. We have an iMini MacBook Pro that does more than my mini MacBook Pro did 3 years ago. And that platform is where the growth comes. You know, I was at Century City after I got here in LA and meeting a friend for lunch, and we toured the Microsoft store, the Sony store, and the Apple store. And you know, we started off at Apple, because we're Apple people, and the store's packed, first of all, and then there's so many products that Apple is selling that are not Apple products, that are built upon the platform, whether it's the Mac platform, the iPhone platform, or the iPad platform. It's now a general Apple platform. The ecosystem doesn't need to be separated. The things you're using on your Mac, you get a text, you get an iPad, that iPhone, it becomes an overall platform, that ecosystem that we all use. And that's where the differentiation, that's once they hit that critical mass. Once all of you are using iPhone, iOS, and iPad, and Mac, then guess what? The developers, we just heard them talking about the same concept. It's the positive feedback loop that happens once you get critical mass on either the consumer side or the developer side. Can't really differentiate the two. It becomes a positive feedback loop because the more consumers you get, the more developers you're going to get, the more consumers will come to your product. If there weren't a million apps already, the iPad would not be as successful. But the fact that you can go buy a barbecue thermometer wireless app thing that you put into your roast beef when you put it in your barbecue, and you're sitting inside reading your New York Times app on your iPad, and it, boop, boop, temperature alert. That is an application I never would have thought of, but it has been built upon that Apple platform. So by creating the platform that then hits critical mass, that then gets more developers and more users, it becomes unconquerable. It becomes something that can't be touched. It becomes something like that Wintel monopoly that you saw in the 80s and 90s that drove stocks like Dell and Microsoft up tens of thousands of percents. What ends up happening as you all start using more and more Apple ecosystem products, you are locked in then to Apple. You heard Steve Wozniak talk a little bit about how they're a little more closed today than they were a few years ago. That is one of the most important parts for you as an investor. As a consumer, I hate it. I just want to be able to open it up and not have anything locked and do whatever I want. But Apple, as the selling all of those services, all of those applications, all of those games, all of the movies, everything you're buying on that Apple ecosystem is going to go up in price because there will be less competition. You can't leave Apple. You're locked in. Nortel and Lucent used to do this to the AT&Ts and Ts and Verizons, and now we see Apple doing it to you and me. As an investor, I'm great with it. Obviously, as a consumer, I don't want to be locked into Apple forever. Tough.